Chess, nonsense, and analysis. Yeah, so I this caught my attention. Basically, there's a match, a six-game match, classical time control, between Peter Svidler and Yagiz Khan Erdogmus. What a cool name. So yeah, you look, Svidler is in his 40s, and this youngster is 14. So yeah, it's a very nice clash between two generations, of course. And I think that this is an excellent opportunity for this youngster to gain some experience, play against Svidler one-on-one. It will do him a world of good. So anyway, three games have been played so far, and the score is 1.5 each. Um, you know, first game, I think Svidler, I don't know, he hasn't played so much, of course. And the first game, which is the one that I'm going to show you guys, he was in good control, but blundered somewhere. Yeah, it happens. And but then the second game was interesting. It was a draw, and then the third game, Svidler won a very nice Sicilian, which I will possibly show you guys as well later on. So three games to go, and we're going to see what's going to happen. But anyway, what is interesting? This match it's held in France, but this guy, Erdogmus, is actually Turkish, and he was the youngest player in history to cross 2,600, something like that. And right now, I think he's like few points away from entering top 100 in the world. So fascinating, fantastic, and we want to see what will happen. Yeah, the match is definitely fascinating, and we shall see how it will end. Let's jump into this game. So Svidler was playing with the white pieces here. It was a French and knight c e2. Of course, this has become all the rage now recently since the World Championship match between Gukesh and Dingliren, because this was what Gukesh had been what he chose, no? So it has exploded in popularity, and f6 is played. Um, I don't look, I don't know much about this theory. It's like, but of course, a typical French position. But I feel that, if White has to ask questions, then it will have to be knight f4 possibly. And it's a sharp position. But of course, this definitely is in the player's preparations. But in the match, Svidler took on f6 and played knight c3. And to me, this position looks very, very harmless. Black is pretty comfortable. Of course, the position is equal. And then takes on c6. Of course, White would love, if only he had time, no? If White could put a knight on a4, bishop on e3, rook on c1, then White would be happy, of course. And then, because, this pawn would be backward, and White would put the knight on c5 and then shift over attention to the e6 pawn, and so on and so on. But Black is, of course, not going to allow this. Plays c5 immediately. Yeah, so now White has to be careful, because the problem is that if you're not careful, the center could be very mobile. But Svidler treats this rook c1, attacking the bishop with some X-ray, bishop a7. And this idea I find very nice. And this is interesting, dear viewer, because if you actually look at the channel, we did touch upon a game by Magnus Carlsen, where Carlsen was playing against Super GM Hare Krishna from India, and played something similar. And we showed the stem game where Botvinnik had played something similar, I think, against Boleslavsky. So it shows, that you cannot escape from study and knowing key ideas. The key ideas, they help you to come to make decisions like this because bishop takes e3, f takes e3. I'm 100% sure that had Svidler not seen the games we talked about, he would have hesitated here. But now we understand the how dynamic the position is. Um, and anyway, the pawn on e3 is not a weakness. Well, it is a weakness, but I mean, it's not easy to attack it. And white will try to play that e4, but so it stabilizes the center so that there is no rolling of the center forward. Rook b8, b3, a logical move. So white in some positions may want to play knight a4, knight c5, a5, h3, bishop a6. So he decides to activate his pieces, yeah? Queen e7. So black is extremely active. Um, and would love at some point to play some e5, but at the moment the d5 pawn is under pressure and Svidler plays queen d4. So the position is very, very dynamic, but I think that white is at least practically starting to have a slight push in the position. The engine may say something different, but it's not so important, I think, because the more we work with engines, the more we realize as well that um, the engine may feel that this position is equal, but if you move a few moves ahead, it may change his mind. So, it is what it is. You cannot just take the evaluation of the English of the engine face value and say, well, this position is this, that, that position is that, and that. Especially if the position is not tactical. No, if it's a tactical position, yeah, then the engine is extremely accurate. But I think in strategic positions like these, there are so many factors that play a role. It's not so clear. I feel that white is slightly better, very, very slight. Okay, rook c8 and doubles the rooks. So, question: what is shall we call it? Um, what is white playing for? Well, okay, let's look at the structure. So the pawn on e6 and the pawns on a5, they play a role. Because the pawn on d5 as well does stop some of black's pieces from being very active. So white would not mind to exchange a couple of pieces and and have a squeeze on the black squares. Imagine if the knights would be on e5 and let's say d4, or in perfect conditions, the pawn itself being on d4. So yeah, and black must try to be very active here and not allow too many exchanges. So this makes sense, rook e8, yeah? Because you don't want to stay on c8 because then after knight a4, you will be forced to exchange. So here he is now threatening e5, wanting to make the position dynamic. Svidler plays knight a4, e5 is played, and Svidler moves queen d2. So Svidler's argument is that e5, although dynamic, but it does create more targets as well. Position is becoming very, very strategically interesting. And I really was attracted to this position because, look, the pawn on a5 is weak. The pawn on d5 is weak. The pawn on e5 is also weak. So is the pawn on e3. But it seems to one that it is actually white who is putting pressure, isn't it? I mean, it certainly looks like it's white who's attacking the pawns easier. But okay, queen b4 is a good move. Rook c7. Remember, we said that white doesn't mind exchanging. Okay, black exchanges, plays bishop b5, knight c5, and rook c8. And here, yeah, we were denied a very interesting strategic battle because right here, I just feel that Svidler kind of bombed out simply because he hasn't played for long. And so, there's that match fitness, like when you are rusty. And I think you are rusty. He definitely played some training matches and so on. But if you're not playing, on the board, you still can slip up in terms of, being rusty. He planned that here, unfortunately, Svidler. I've even played a really nice game up to now. And, but don't forget it was the first game, no? So possibly 96 should be played and putting pressure. Black would be forced to play bishop to d7, and white is slightly better, but black can more probably defend, but he's going to be forced to defend for a while. No? But instead of this, Svidler inexplicably played knight to b7. Yeah, he just loses concentration. It's not even that difficult to find. So, yeah, dear viewer, you can pause the video, have a look here. Why is this a blunder? Black to play. How does black punish white? Right, you're back. And yeah, so you found it, you say. Excellent, well done. Yeah, the problem is that the rook on c7 defends the knight, but the rook doesn't have many squares on the seventh rank. Simple as that. So it is rook takes c7 and knight e8. Now the rook only has one square. Well, if the rook wants to still continue defending the knight, that is, right? And unfortunately for white, he cannot play rook c5 and attack the bishop. He can, but rook takes b7, the bishop is defended. So bad news. He tries rook e7, king f8, and he picks up the pawn and another one. So black is a piece up, and white is trying to get compensation. Now, you know, it took me quite a while, actually. I mean, generally, you know, in chess, to understand or to try to understand when is it compensation. It's always compensation, but when is it possible that you are even playing for equality or maybe for more when you have a bunch of pawns in the endgame? And generally, the measure, dear viewer, is how dangerous the pawns can be. So if the pawns are forward, then you definitely have compensation. Let's make an example. Let's say maybe this pawn is not isolated and it's on c5 as an example, right? And black and white can play a3, b4, support that guy. White has got compensation because white will be threatening to attack c6, to push the pawn forward, blah, 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 blah. But when the pawns are further back, then it is there are many squares open for the pieces, and the pieces will generally stop the pawns from moving forward. So in this case, yes, technically speaking, white is just lost. So, but black must be careful. Knight f6, check, and attacks the rook. Rook d7, attacking the knight. So we are now seeing what black is having an argument, or rather presenting as an argument, is saying, look, I have three pieces, and you have to be careful how you place your pieces because your king is weak or can be weak, and I'll be attacking with three pieces. And so the challenge is that if white somehow manages to only have the knight defending and black explodes all three pieces, there's going to be an attack, right? So it plays knight f3 and a4, and this takes the rook, and he takes on f3. Yeah, maybe time trouble. Maybe he could have kept the king on h2 like this, and then because the king cannot move to f2, and then gobble up some pawns, right? And it was brilliant for him to make the pawns doubled on the a file. They won't be that dangerous. Anyway, in this manner, okay, some little bit of work has to be done. And yeah, but this is the area of the engine, because the engine can calculate a couple of moves ahead. It's very difficult for a human being. I will say that for a human being, this is always lost because, as I said, the pawns are too far behind, and the pawns on the queen side will both be captured. And yeah, and where still the king is held there back there, cannot be activated. So yeah, it's difficult to really comment because it's so unusual, the configuration of pieces. Apparently, rook e2 here would have been good for black, but played g6, and a5 he should have played king f1, and now he does lose the e pawn, and he decided to call it a day. Definitely disappointed with his play. because he was playing actually quite well till he just blundered it away with knight b7. So yeah, but so the score at the moment is 1.5, 1.5, and 3 more games to go. I'm very much interested in this match. I want to see, but okay, look, Svidler is a very dangerous player, so you cannot maybe see the full spectrum, so to say, of this guy's talent, because Svidler will not make life easy for him at all, but he will learn a lot, the youngster, and yeah, someone else to watch already, 14 and 26, 26, and on the way forward. So it'll be interesting to watch, right? All right, I'll keep an eye out, guys, and report back to you. Please do like, share, subscribe, and all those other wonderful things. And do comment as well if you want to. Right? Wait, so if you have something interesting to say, or even if you don't have something interesting to say, you just say hi. It's also okay. We don't always have to have interesting things to say when we talk or communicate. Right. So till next time, dear viewer, have a great one. And I will say for now, well, checkmate.